Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dog Classroom Podcast. I'm Anne-Marie.
And I'm Amelia.
And today we are talking about loose-leash walking. So the thing with loose-leash walking, I have to say it's one of the top three why people come to training classes.
Yeah.
That, recall, and probably anti-jumping. So the tricky thing for us is we're in a studio. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily have a lot of room. We don't have a camera following us, though. On, I don't want to say bucket list, but it is something we want to do. We're doing more real in life walking outside. Yes. But we're going to start with the basics today.
We're going to start with the basics, which you can do inside anyway.
Right.
And I think we have back in season 1, our second episode was all about our, thoughts on loose leash walking. So all of the stuff, the sort of background info.
Right.
And now we're going to kind of show sort of what we do.
Yeah, so I don't want to say over the years, because this is our, second 2.5 sort of years of doing podcasts. I don't want to say over the years, but we're hoping that, as you're watching the one, you're like, okay, what's next?
Yes.
And then we're hoping to help you out with that as we continue with that. So to start already, you'll notice we're sort of both standing here. Obviously, a lot of times we've been sitting. So we're definitely going to be standing up for this one, moving around a little bit. But we want to show you the basics of just the handling, because I think the most important a lot of times for people is holding the leash and treating.
Yes, it's really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard, and people get extremely frustrated. So it's not necessarily a drawback that we're not going to move too far. So my stronger side is the left, because in the day when I had my first dog, we were told that you always walk the dog on the left-hand side, just for training obedience. To add into it now, because I'll have clients say, which side am I supposed to walk on, right? And I tell them it's absolutely their preference.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. I always have my dogs on the right because it's just easier for me.
Right. So, correct. So, with saying that, you'll notice one's dog on one side, Amelia's going to do stuff on that side, I'm going to do stuff on this side, and then we do have B here, the third dog, so I'm also going to throw in a little bit of how to walk multi-dogs.
Right.
For anybody, we tell you what you want to do is start your training with, yes, picking a side, get comfortable, but we would like you long-term to have the goal of being able to walk the dog on both sides.
Yes.
Okay? So the idea with that is because you never know when you're going to be in a crowd, you never know when you're going to need to get by another dog. You're going over a bridge, those sort of things where the dog will have to switch sides for safety purposes.
Yes.
And if you've practiced it and you and your dog are comfortable about switching sides, absolute bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because some people, again, will just do it at the last minute. If you don't train it, the dog will automatically go back to the other side.
Yeah.
Because we have trained them that treats only happen on this hip, on this side.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so now that I've explained that, because I know there's going to be questions right away, so you'll notice that I have a loop here. I have 2 hands on the leash, okay? I really encourage people not to do this. Okay, I know you don't necessarily want a long leash, but the problem is if the dog ever bolted, and we're saying bolted, could be another dog, squirrel, startled by a noise.
Yeah.
This may crush my hand or below my shoulder.
Yeah.
So it's also about safety.
Yes, correct.
If your leash is a little bit long, you just take a nice little loop there. Okay. Now, the reason why 2 hands is, Amelia and I are both women, our center of gravity, and we have more strength in our hips and legs than we do our shoulders.
Yeah.
It's men that have stronger lat muscles, as my osteopath says. So if we hold up here, we're going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think when you have a big dog in general, if you can hold the leash with 2 hands, then you're going to have a little bit more control. So what I do, and then everyone's like, well, then how are we supposed to treat? Is I let go of that. I reach for my treat. I let go.
Reach.
I do the same. I just drop it, and obviously I have Nuggie with me, who's a little bit smaller, but I do have a larger dog at home. So if I need to, I can have my one hand free, and I've got a grip on it. Hi, Nunu.
She knows I got cheese.
The other thing is the placement of that reward. It's going to be a lot easier if you have the hand closest to the dog free.
Correct. Yeah.
So why don't you, I know you were already doing it, but let's talk through how you're rewarding Maui when he is beside you.
So the thing is, a lot of people, what they like to do, so if I'm right-handed, right, and same with some people, right or left-handed, they do everything with that one hand. So that hand is holding the leash, that hand is feeding, okay?
And it's just a mess.
So think of dog training like any sport. We need to use both of our hands to be more efficient.
Yeah, and we need to learn the proper mechanics and how to do things, right? So that we're doing it, we're rewarding the dog where we want them to be, number one.
Right.
And that also, like you said, it's more efficient.
Right. So you'll notice Amelia is exaggerating, yet not exaggerating, because I get after clients. She's not throwing her back out. She's doing beautiful squats when she rewards the little, okay? And the other thing is she's getting the treat to Nuggie. She's not holding it up here and then getting discouraged that Nuggie's jumping.
Yes, because with small dogs, people like to hold the treat up here, which is another thing with loose leash walking. We don't lure it, right? We reward when the dog is where we want them to be. A lot of like what you see online, we're researching on YouTube for this, is a lot of luring. And for small dogs, like that's just gonna cause them to jump. Because they want to get that treat. So I'm not walking around like this, or I'm not breaking my back sort of going down like that. If I need to reward her, it's going to be either bringing the reward like that or search, which is just teaching the dog to get the cookie off the ground. So if I say search, she knows to look down, and that's where the cookie's going to come from instead of my hand.
Right. And again, it's about right beside you. So the position that we're marking is like here, here on this side. I just want to throw it out there real quick because I think some people don't realize what they're doing or what they look like. If I'm not feeding with the hand on the closest, look where I'm feeding.
And so he comes and he cuts you off, which then becomes
and then everybody is then right? And then trying to go. But look how much more efficient this is right here and not that. Okay, that's why we get after a little bit. The other thing is long term, if you want to do any type of sport with dogs, they have to be able to stay beside you and not cut you off. I was talking to my little dog's walking class this week, and I said it's almost more important for little dogs to walk and heel, because if they're zigzagging in front of us, we're more likely to trip. Right.
Yeah, and I mean, when thinking back to our first loose leash walking episode, we don't need the dog to walk and heel the entire time.
No.
But we want a loose leash, which is this, right? So this loose leash, we aren't just having this super tight tension on the leash and following the dog around. We're having it nice and loose, and they're sort of off to the side, out of the way a little bit.
Right, okay, so that leads us into our next exercise. We've talked about holding the leash. I've tried to show you a little bit with switching Maui back on from side to side. Amelia's working over there. When you first start a walk, we all know dogs are very enthusiastic, super excited. It's all about expectation, so we highly recommend not doing this. To start the walk. The dog is not going to walk there. With you holding the dog so tight, the dog will pull.
And you will be frustrated.
Okay? So you got to get a little bit out of the excitement. So ways you can do that: play a game of fetch or recall backyard in the house. Get a little bit U-turns, walking up and down the driveway. Absolutely nothing like that wrong with that. But the idea is, believe it or not, if you keep a loose leash, so will the dog. The more you tighten up on the leash, the more the dog pulls.
Well, right, because the leash is tight. How are they not going to pull?
Okay, so really trying to encourage you guys to do this.
And then you can give more leash if you need to.
So then
and
you can loosen out or not.
leash up.
Okay, so some people say, okay, so now my dog is possibly pulling and I'm holding this. So what we're gonna mention is red light, green light.
Okay.
Okay, then we're gonna go to our 1, 2, 3s. So I've been having my walking classes start more like this because they're all excited to see one another. They're excited about being in a new space. So I tell the owners, start moving, hold the end of the leash like this so we're not falling anywhere. And the thing is, we're allowing the dog to move forward. If at any time that leash gets tight, we just stop moving.
Exactly.
Okay.
And even with the small dogs, I see people following the dogs on a tight leash, particularly with flexi leashes, but that's another conversation, is when the dog has tight leash and they learn that pulling moves them forward, every step of that movement forward becomes a reward because they're getting closer to the thing or the person or the dog or whatever.
And really trying to educate people, but believe it or not, when you move forward, it is a reward for the dog.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So even if you're holding on for dear life and the dog's dragging you, they'll just get better and better and better at that. Okay. So again, just hold, and what we do is when the leash gets tight, okay, I just stop, hold it. Once he feels the tight leash, he turns and looks at me.
And that's being trained, right?
Yes.
So we don't just expect that. That's something that we take the time to teach. Oh, a little bit of leash pressure means move toward me.
Right.
Right.
So we're teaching them when the leash gets tight, the dog loosens the leash by coming to us, then we continue forward.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not jerking.
Yeah.
Right?
We're just standing there.
They feel the leash pressure. A lot of times the dogs turn and look at you and go, why aren't you coming? And basically what I say is I'd like to continue together, not you totally in front of me. And then we pick them back up and away we go. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Once they've got a little bit of the P and V's out, then I might start to work a little bit more attention. Before we get into the 1, 2, 3s though, I just want to do a quick U-turn.
I think the U-turn is really important.
Yeah. So the thing is, if our dog is coming out here, unfortunately a lot of people just want to grab and move. What I like to do is use my treats and my body language to move my dog instead of being...
did that when Nuggie came over here.
Yeah. Instead of being physical with the leash. So if he's out over here, to get him back over here, I just go into a U-turn, which is a 180-degree turn, and he's right beside me.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, if he's out over here sniffing and I want him here, all I have to do, oh, I was gonna do something tricky there. Okay, all I have to do is do my turn, he's right beside me, and I keep going.
Yeah, and especially if they're pulling forward a lot, doing the red light, green light, you don't move very far, right?
No, you
so
don't.
you end up stopping and going and stopping and going, and it takes a long time, can be a little frustrating, not all that fun.
Right.
So these are things that you can use together, right? Not just pick one, and that's what you're doing for the walk. So if we're doing red light, green light, and when they come back, they are just going all over the place again, we can combine red light, green light, you come back, we do a U-turn together, and then we reward them when they're beside us, and we can keep going.
Yep. And again, it's all about that hip, right? Dogs learn through reinforcement in a particular location.
Yes.
So when we're walking now, my dogs are older and we've worked on it a lot, is they'll come find this position to get rewarded instead of out here. Come here, BB.
He says, but she has cheese.
Okay, the other thing is it's showing the dog that we're not going to continue moving forward unless I have your attention. And it's also a great way to get the dog's attention, is just turning around instead of pulling.
Exactly, and then they're choosing to move. We're not just dragging them around where we want them, so we know that they're actually learning.
Yep, so again,
that this
right
place
here,
is reinforcing.
turn, treat.
Beautiful. In addition to those, so a couple of things, like you said, the focus, the attention, and also the 1, 2, 3. So one of the things that we have started to do is add in some pattern games. So if you're interested in pattern games, Leslie McDevitt is a great author. She has books called Control Unleashed, and they have a whole bunch of different pattern games. Not sponsored, not an ad. But just a really good place to get some information if you're interested in how dogs learn through patterns. So when we're doing different patterns with our dogs, we are teaching them that the good things are going to come, right? This is just what's leading up to it. Right. So with 1, 2, 3, we actually start off by teaching that 3 means treat. So if I have Nuggie beside me and I say 3, and I give her a treat, or in her case, because she's small, a lot of the time I'll drop it on the floor. So 3 means a treat is coming, surge. 3, then I start to add on to that. 2, 3. Let her eat that treat. 2, 3. Her little body language at 2 was funny. 2, 3.
And she's flinching at 2.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, she starts to flinch because she knows that it's going to come. So she's actually done a little bit of this pattern before. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then if we wanted to do it while we were moving, I want her to be able to focus on me while I'm counting to 3 so that we can get past whatever distraction. Right. I like it for the barking dogs behind the fence. Yeah. I think it's good to just 1, 2, 3 your way out of that situation. The dog's looking at you, they're not fence fighting. So let's see if we can get her to move with me. 1, 2, 3. So I teach her that on 3 we move, and then we put it all together. 1, 2, 3. And I can get her walking and staying beside me. 1, 2, 3. And then I can get wherever I need to go. Obviously, small space, we're not going that far. Right, but just I could slow it down. For concept purposes or for the viewers, just do it 2 times in a row for me. And I know we're trying to get out of the way here, but. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Come back again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So do you notice how as soon as she says 3, she catches up on that side, but this is where heeling comes into play. Right. Did you notice at any time Amelia had no pressure on that leash? She just kept the repetition. So the dog's like, absolutely, I'll stay here because I know like 3's coming. Yeah. Right? And that's how we get heeling, which a lot of people, the majority of people want, where that dog is walking beside us on a loose leash. Yeah. So the thing is, Amelia repeats it and repeats it and repeats it and repeats it, and then eventually she slows it down. Yeah, so once I teach the 1, 2, 3, I change basically the pattern, I guess how long the pattern is going to take. Like, I'm reasonable. It needs to be within a certain time so that they're not like, okay, I said 1 and then an hour later I'm going to go 2. Yeah, like, well, no. It's got to be, they have to know that it's going to come fast, and then we can start to go, okay, we need to get past this 20 feet of fence with the dog barking behind it. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Or for dogs who are newer at it, you could repeat it. So you could do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And with that, you're also having a higher rate of reinforcement, which is something that I think we don't do enough with leash walking. Yes, absolutely agree. A lot of the time, how many distractions are out there every single day that we can't control or we don't pick up on? Mm-hmm. Because remember, their nose is better than ours, smell as well as hearing. So even though, say, we walk the same location, and I know, people go right from their house in their neighborhood, but can you imagine how many other things are there in respect to last week? Yes. Right? Well, and even like if it rains or another dog walks by or whatever, there's always different things. Yeah, raining's a good one because that's been happening a lot. So we need to reinforce our dog for being with us throughout all these distractions, but we just don't. Because a lot of people think, I don't want to bring treats on walks. That's really, I have my little treat pouch, or I'll bring a fanny pack if I'm going I need my poop bags, my phone, I got my pocket here. Yeah, and that way with my my bag too, when I'm walking in the city, is I wear it in the middle. So if I do need to switch sides, it's right there. I'm not having to dig in this pocket and then awkwardly treat. So if they're new, they need high rate of reinforcement, or you're going somewhere with high distractions, definitely recommend a treat pouch. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there. So it's all on what works better for you. I'll wear one some of the time. Sometimes for me, it's easier with the pocket.
depending upon what you're wearing. It's sort of funny how many people come in their shirt and yoga pants with no pockets. So that's why it doesn't hurt to have a little purse or whatever. I joke that dog trainers had fanny packs in the day before, Lululemon put them out. So I just wanted to add on to what Amelia said. I would still like to do, and I think that's a future thing in how to train multi-dogs.
Yes.
I think that's another good one to consider. So I just wanted to show this real quick since I have the two poodles. So basically what I have here is a double-ended leash, okay? So there's a clip on either end. The bonus about this one is it's a little bit longer than a 6 foot. So I think it's about 7 feet, which gives me a little bit more room. So you'll notice right now that I have the dog on either side. So here's a reason why, if you have a multi-dog household, I believe both dogs should be able to walk on both sides, depending upon what the stress is. So sometimes if I'm passing a larger dog and B's uncomfortable, I might put him on this side or I might put him on that side. But again, I'm holding the leash with 2 hands.
Yeah.
Okay, and walking. If I need to treat,
you can pass it off.
I pass it off. Okay, I bend down here, I treat, and then I can pass it off and treat. Okay. Again, it's about keeping loose leashes, as I want them to have enough that I'm not, sort of keeping them super tight. But the idea is just moving my hands along here. Just getting used to it, figuring out what's comfortable. So the idea, though, is when we start to move, is when I'm turning, because we talked about that U-turn, is what happens is, come on, Bee. Bee's like a little bit weirded out because we're doing this inside, is I move one way towards the other dog. There.
So one dog is turning in a U-turn, and the other dog you are turning
into. Yeah, there we go.
So we have to teach them those skills.
Yeah.
And with walking multiple dogs, you always want to train them separately and then together.
Right.
So you would work one dog on one side, one dog on the other side, and then you would work on turning with one dog on one side and turning with the one dog on the other side, and then you would try to put them together and go for that walk.
Come on. Yeah, and it's about, like I said, getting them used to and being able to direct them, because the tricky thing with multiples or even walking in, let's go group walks, if one dog barks, we know they're all going.
Yes.
They're going to bark as well. So it's about redirecting them and asking to let go of that distraction and to give us attention. It happens in our group walks as well, whether you're walking friends, family, that sort of thing. So it's important that the dog be comfortable. And I've actually had a few clients now where the first few weeks they just went around the block. They went back and forth, and they're having really good success because the dog was less overwhelmed about the environment and able to pay attention, and then you slowly go further and further and further. So it's not like you haven't been practicing your skills and you show up at the marine on a Saturday.
You don't want to be doing that.
No.
The other thing you mentioned about comfort is, I will say, I like the double-ended leash better than the leash coupler, which is the thing you clip to the end of a regular leash, and it has 2 sort of leashes coming off of it that are very short.
Yeah.
I see there's a few different types of them, but there's some that people will put on both dogs, and then one dog can pull the other, and it's just like a little saw back and forth. I think that's super unfair. I think that's, unless your dogs are really, really perfectly trained and they walk beautifully or whatever, and they're exactly the same size and it's comfortable, not ideal.
Right.
The other thing is, with this, you can sort of move your hands where you need to on the leash and give one more and one less and whatever. Like, you can use it how you need it.
So the thing you're saying is actually keep them separate.
Yeah.
The other thing, which I will do sometimes, is walk them on the same side. But the tricky thing, like Amelia's saying with the coupler, is if I had 2 dogs, I have over 100 pounds on one 6-foot leash.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Unfortunately, what starts happening is if one dog barks, the dogs become reactive to each other.
Yeah.
And they attack each other. That's happened a lot because the owner cannot separate the two dogs.
Yeah, and I just think it's a lot easier and more fair to the dogs if they have their own space and they're not being pulled by each other.
Yeah, agreed.
And then also with being able to do turns and stuff like that, it's going to be a lot harder when you don't have the hands on the leash, where they're just sort of way out in front of you, attached to one another.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So again, it's about mechanics. It's about, and we say this, and again, written articles, multi-dog households, train individually, then together. You guys can totally walk up and down your hallway, create an obstacle course, okay? Just to get that dog finding the spot.
Yeah,
okay?
And I think with our expectations as far as training these things and making sure that our dog, you know, actually knows them well enough before we take them into situations, like you said, going to the marina on a Saturday is going to be a really difficult situation. We're not going to expect them to, you know, walk beautifully in heel that whole time. We have a little visitor out there in the studio.
Apparently. So a little bit of distraction, but again, you're noticing one dog goes, the rest of them do. So do you see how I started moving? Amelia picked him up, but as soon as I start moving, I get that attention back.
Yeah, and I know for Nuggie, when the barking goes on, she gets really excited, so I just pick her up and then she calms down a little bit. With that said, back to our conclusion.
Oh, we're doing this now.
When you're walking with your dog, holding the leash, rewarding where you want them, actually bringing treats on walks and rewarding your dog, because it is a behavior that they have to learn. And then making sure that if you have multiple dogs, you're training them separately, then together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But as far as leash walking, it's not the dog's learning. It's the dog learning with the owner, because the owner is the one on the end of the leash. So a lot of people say, you know, the dog walks fine with us, but we practiced the skills, multiple dogs, minutes and minutes and hours. So the thing is, again, they'll get it. It takes time, especially if you're working with a puppy or younger dog. You just keep building on the skills.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. And you can find us online on social media at The Dog Classroom. And you can watch us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.